Hey everybody, it's me Amanda with Once in a Wild and welcome back to Once in a Wild Wednesday. Sorry for the delay. We were having a little bit of trouble with Instagram Live. I wanted to go ahead and include our Instagram followers today again like we did last week. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get right going. Woohoo! Sorry for the delay once again. It's me, Amanda, with Once in a Wild, and welcome back to Once in a Wild Wednesday. If this is your first time visiting us for a Once in a Wild Wednesday, welcome. We are always happy to see new people watching the show, of course. We do broadcast every single Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time here in South Texas is where we are actually living, and that's why we are on Central Time. And we are a mobile zoo located right here in San Antonio, Texas, and we do serve the city of San Antonio as well as surrounding cities and areas around us. Within reason, we can bring the zoo to you to anywhere around that area, and we can actually bring animals to almost any event, classroom presentation, animal therapy session of your choice, as well as a photo opportunity for you. And if you're not in our area directly and you can't actually access us in person, we have good news for you. We also offer virtual encounters, just like you see today with our live stream. Our live stream is free, but you can actually purchase your own custom animal encounter, which is conducted via Zoom, and you can customize which animals that you would like to meet. Typically, we bring 8 animals along for every show, and you can learn all about them as well as ask me questions. You can also ask questions tonight on the chat. You can type in your questions down below. Please feel free to give me comments and questions and let me know how you're doing. Let me know how your week was, whether you be on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, of course. Make sure to also follow us on all those platforms if you haven't already, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not already. That does help us out quite a bit, and that's a great free way to help out our zoo and spread the word about what we do. And what do we do? Well, of course, like I said already, we can bring animals to events and give presentations about them. We can also offer a mini petting zoo for you guys, as well as animal therapy, like I mentioned before, and even photo opportunities. But we always make sure that the animals are having a good time, that you're having a good and safe time, that your kids and adults, of course, are having a good time. All you kids, make sure your parents are doing well, right? It's important for everybody to be safe and having a wonderful time, but also getting an education and learning something about our animals. And that is actually where we are kind of rooted, is in animal education. So we want to make sure to teach you guys about something new about the animals maybe you didn't know before, and it'll help you appreciate the animals and therefore want to fall in love with them maybe, or at least have a better experience with the animals that you may not have liked before maybe, and you have like a little bit of a better idea or understanding of them, and maybe you will want to conserve and save those animals in the end. So that is kind of our mission here at Once in a While. And like I said, each and every Wednesday evening, we offer a free animal encounter, which is this. And last week, we actually talked about a little bit about our animal husbandry. And I did my very best to kind of compress it into one live stream, but I failed. And we're going to have to actually put it in 2 live streams because there's a lot to do each and every single day with all of our animals. Here at Once in a While, we do have over 75 animal ambassadors. We actually have well over that, but over 75 for sure. And the reason why I say that is because we do have Madagascar hissing cockroaches, which I didn't bring today, but maybe next time. And those Madagascar hissing cockroaches actually have a lot of babies for us all the time. So we do count those guys as future animal ambassadors. While they're still growing, they're not really animal ambassadors yet, but they will work their way up to graduating to that job, if you will. And that's why we don't know exactly how many we have, but it is well over 75. And a lot of those are bugs, creepy crawlies, invertebrates, and reptiles, amphibians, and we even have mammals and birds too. So something for everybody. If you're not into the creepy crawly type critters, I don't blame you. It's okay. Not everybody is weird like me and like us here at Once in a While, and that is okay. We just want to encourage you guys to respect all animals that have a place in the animal kingdom and in nature, right? But you don't have to love snakes and spiders and snails and things as much as we do. But we have furry and feathery critters too. Let's see who's chiming in so far. Hello, everybody on Instagram. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're not usually on Instagram, but I am going to make it a habit again of being on Instagram Live, because I know a lot of you prefer Instagram to Facebook and maybe even to YouTube. YouTube happens to be my favorite. We're also on TikTok and Twitter as well. We do quite a bit on TikTok too, and maybe I'll go live over there sometimes too at a different time or something like that. But I can only broadcast simultaneously to so many platforms at once. It is a lot of work to do a one-woman show. So hello, everybody. everybody out there watching on any of the platforms. And again, today we're going to talk about our husbandry, or what we kind of do on a day-to-day basis as a mini zoo, which is a home-based zoo. So like I mentioned last week, if you weren't here, check out the video from last week. We do put those back up on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I believe the live is still up on Instagram on our regular feed. You can watch that. I think there's a picture of me with a ball python on that thumbnail that you can click on. That thing. And you can watch the previous week where we talked about our AM or morning husbandry, but our shifts, if you will, to take care of all of those lots and lots of animals that we have are AM and PM, so morning and evening. So tonight is the evening, right? So you might be wondering, who's taking care of our animals tonight? Well, somebody else is taking care of our animals tonight and not me. We actually do have 2 other keepers here at Once in a While that are part-time, but they do help me out so much and help us take care of our animals. So it used to just be me all by myself, and it was a lot to do. And now we've been able to have the means to hire a couple more people, which is so exciting. And I'm sure you guys will get to meet them at some point on the live stream, or in general. I'm sure we will go ahead and let you guys meet them, and they are wonderful. But so for the PM, that is a little bit different than the AM. AM, of course, animals get their breakfast. They're let out for the first time during the day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of cleaning goes on in the AM, but a lot of cleaning goes on in the PM too. And for those of you that weren't here last week, remember, or I will just tell you if you weren't here, but those of you that watched it last week, I'll just recap. So we have a few animal sections, if you will. Some of the animals do not do well being in the same room together or mingling together at all, and some of them do. So for example, we have our reptile room, or Herp Room, H-E-R-P. Herp is kind of like a short for herpetology, which is the study of reptiles. So when we say herps in our field, the zoo field, we typically indicate, we're talking about reptiles, amphibians, so that also includes invertebrates and things like that, typically in the same room, even though technically if you're studying invertebrates, you're like an entomologist and not a herpetologist. However, typically those animals are kind of lumped together in a zoo setting in kind of one section, if you will, and that is how we have our animals as well. And our opossums are actually in that room as well, because it works out pretty well to have them in their own enclosure. Of course, they're not just like free range in the reptile room, but the reptiles, for the most part, every single one of the reptiles, amphibians, and invertebrates has their own enclosure. And some of the invertebrates live together just fine, like the Madagascar hissing cockroaches, and some of them are solitary, so they live by themselves. We even have one fish, a betta fish, in the herp room as well. So the herp room includes the reptiles, amphibians, one fish, and invertebrates, and the opossums at this point. And we're actually going to have room for maybe one more mystery animal coming up soon that we are adopting very, very soon. So we're very excited about that as well, but stay tuned for that announcement later. I'm not going to give it away today. Hello, Ricky. Nice to see you. As you guys say hello, I will highlight your comments on YouTube and Facebook, and you guys on Instagram, I can see you there as well. Thank you so much for saying hello and for watching. So what was I going to say? The herp room is one section. So that's usually where we start our shift, more or less. So we will go you remember in the morning, we're turning lamps on. So in the evening, we're basically mimicking the sun for some of our animals. So in the evening, we turn our lamps off, whether they be ultraviolet lamps or our heat lamps. And those are the bulbs or lamps, right? So those animals that need those lamps, like our, let's see, the tegu lizard, the Savannah monitor lizard Dino, the tegu is Lulu, our bearded dragon Eddie, a lot of those animals, the chameleons, of course, they need lamps. So even our opossums have an ultraviolet lamp. Did you know that opossums actually need ultraviolet to be very, very healthy and have strong bones? It helps them to develop and be very strong. So we give her an ultraviolet lamp. You can also substitute that with natural sun, but since they live inside, it's good to have a UV source all the time, or at least during the day, I should say. So we turn them off at night, all those lamps. I didn't even list them all, but there's so many of them. And we turn them off. And then we kind of check over our animals simultaneously while doing that. And for the reptiles that need it, the more tropical or forest or non-desert type animals, we will mist them. We will actually give them a nice shower. And speaking of reptiles, I'll go ahead and show you one of our reptiles while we're talking. I forgot to bring out an animal. I did bring 3 animal species today. I typically do bring some animals on the show, of course. That's what you're probably all here to see, as well as maybe learn about what we do on a day-to-day basis. But here we have a really cute crested gecko. Her name is Rue. We actually have several crested geckos here at Once in a Wild, and Rue is the most calm and handleable of all of our crested geckos. So she usually gets to come out and do shows if we bring any crested gecko. She's the nicest one and the most calm. All the geckos and animals in general, of course, have their own personalities. So some of them are more suited for programs than others, right? And Rue is certainly a very sweet crested gecko. Crested geckos tend to be very handleable in general, but she's just an extra calm and not skittish crested gecko. So she likes to come out and work the most out of all the crested geckos that we have. At least she seems to do okay with it, right? Crested geckos are a species found in New Caledonia, and that is in the Australasian continent. So they're right next door to Australia. And they're an island-dwelling gecko. They are an omnivorous gecko, which means they eat a little bit of fruit and also insects. So they're not just an insectivore like some other geckos are too, or are, period. These guys will eat things like fruit and nectar, etc. So they're pretty different as far as their diet goes than other geckos. And as you can see, they're an arboreal species. She decided to turn on Ricky's comment again and click the keyboard. They're also a species that can jump. They can jump from branch to branch when climbing. They can jump away to get away from danger if they see a scary predator, or just to move from here to there, etc. They don't have to be scared to be jumping, but they can jump very well, as you just saw the little hop that she did. And they are an arboreal or tree climbing species. So they will be very good climbers, at least decent climbers. Sometimes they fall, I'm not gonna lie. But they have sticky toes. Can you see her climbing my arm? So they have sticky gripping toes, which kind of have like a special mechanism with lots of lines of folded skin together, which grip the sides of surfaces and enable them to grip flat surfaces if they want to, of course, like with the bark of a tree or a tree leaf, and they're going to be found in the trees most of the time. They get most of the water that they need from the raindrops or dew drops on the tree leaves where they live in the jungles of New Caledonia and the forest, the rainforest, I should say. And they also get moisture from nectar and fruit that they eat as well. So they're going to be an omnivorous gecko from the trees. And this type of gecko, like most geckos, they can't blink. They have very fixed, round, large eyes. And much like a snake has, they actually have spectacle scales over their eyes, and so they don't need to blink at all. They can protect their eyes just with that scale alone. They don't have to blink and get rid of debris off of their eye. If they do have something on their eye, like a piece of debris, dirt, something in the way of them seeing, because seeing is their best sense and most important sense to them, they can actually lick their eyeball clean with a very long and gooey tongue and full of saliva, yum, and it can actually clean their eye off just like a windshield wiper would clean your car windshield, right? But these guys have to actually handle that instead of, with their tongue, instead of blinking and getting something out of their eye. So that's kind of unique about these animals. But a lot of geckos in general have that ability to lick their eyes. And most geckos cannot blink, just like the crested gecko. Now, you can also tell this is a nocturnal animal, primarily by looking at their great big eyes. And right now she's got slitted pupils, right? Her pupils are like up and down slits. A lot of nocturnal type animals that are awake mostly at night, they have slitted pupils because that actually allows for them to get bigger than rounded pupils. Rounded pupils can only let in so much light, and slitted pupils can let in more light when expanded. Right now, you'll notice though that it's pretty bright in here. Am I out of focus? It's pretty bright in here. So she needs to shut her pupils pretty tightly in order not to be bothered by the light too much. Since she's a nocturnal animal, that's a great shot. Since she's a nocturnal animal, she's very sensitive to light, and she's got great vision at night or in the daytime. But they prefer to be out at night because it's safer for them to not be eaten by predators. And that's when they can find more bugs and things like that. And they just feel a little bit more comfortable in the night. They're just a nocturnal species. And they have those slitted pupils, which can open up nice and big and allow them to see full color, great sharp images, and they can hunt with their eyes. They can find everything they need with their eyes, but they also have great hearing as well. You can see the holes on the side of her head there. Those are her ears. She's got one on either side. They're just like little holes instead of flaps like we have, right? Mammals have the ear flaps, but no other types of animals have ear flaps. I do apologize for Instagram. I'm trying to figure out the best angle. We are learning all the time. I'm glad you guys get to be involved, though. Rue is awfully cute. They do have great hearing, like I said. They can make noises. Geckos in general are some of the few type of lizards that make actual vocalization. Isn't that neat? So a lot of lizards will hiss and kind of breathe in and out, and that's about all the noises that they can make. However, geckos can actually vocalize. They almost sound like frogs. They're really similar to a frog's voice, and depending on the gecko species, depending on the noise, they make different noises per species. They do make little kind of like frog type noises, like burp, burp, burp type noises, like all sorts of different noises. And they don't make a ton of noise. I almost never hear them doing that, but they can do that for communication for different reasons. Pretty neat. So again, we're in our reptile room. We've turned off our lamps. We're ready to mist. And of course, we've checked over our animals. And the ones that get the most misting are going to not be the crested geckos. It's the chameleons. Chameleons need showers at least twice a day to be healthy. Not just to make sure that they have enough water to drink and a shower to stay clean, right? Like we do. You guys should be showering too at home. If you don't, you should. But also they have to wash their eyes. Chameleons don't have spectacle scales over their eyes. They actually do have eyelids, and chameleons rely on their vision for everything, really. They don't have hearing ability. They don't communicate with their voice at all. There we go. Oh my goodness. Let's make sure we're in focus on this platform down here. Etc. So chameleons, instead of geckos, they have they're just very visual. So their eyes are extremely important. Their eyes are very large and they're very sensitive. And if they don't clean their eyes with rainfall every single day, twice a day, if not 3 times a day, they can easily get an eye injury. And if they get an eye injury or something wrong with their eye, something in their eye, they're not going to have a good time. So it's really, really important for them to wash their eyes when you shower them. They actually get showers for up to 3 to 5 minutes per chameleon per shift. So that is twice a day, maybe even 3 times a day if we can go in and get an extra shower in for your chameleons. Chameleons are very, very high maintenance. So they do get their showers at that time, and then we proceed to mist the rest of the reptiles. Crested geckos also get misted too, especially in the PM, but AM and PM to make sure that they have enough moisture in their habitats. Crested geckos don't typically drink out of a water bowl, and neither do chameleons, by the way. They're going to drink water off of the leaves, and just in their environment needs to be nice and humid for them to properly shed, for them to properly just kind of be healthy. The fun thing about crested geckos in particular is they really don't need a lot of heat. If you have a nice warm room, remember they're nocturnal, so they don't need a sun source. They're not going to be an animal that basks in the sun in nature, so they really don't need lamps. And in fact, lamps can dry them out very quickly. So I've always kept crested geckos, at room temperature. Something very comfortable for you is probably comfortable for them. And they can actually tolerate different temperatures just fine. And they are not from a desert or very hot climate in general. They just need a nice humid enclosure, climate for them to be nice and healthy. And a comfortable temperature is typically okay for them. Because remember, they're nocturnal, so they're not going to be basking in the sun. They don't really need any of that. So they're pretty easy to care for in general. You just have to make sure and feed them properly and mist them twice a day is what we do. Now, that being said, if you don't live in a warm climate yourself, you might need a heat source just to make sure that your geckos are comfortable. But I don't recommend a light because they don't really like light. They would prefer maybe like a heat emitting ceramic lamp, which is a lamp with no light. It's a ceramic heater. People use it a lot of times for brooding chickens, brooding eggs, things like that. It doesn't actually create any light, so it doesn't disturb the geckos. And an attempted leap. And then it also doesn't dry them out as much as other lamps. So that's what I would recommend. But in general, if your room is comfortable, they're probably going to be comfortable too. They do just fine at room temperature, and they really do thrive that way. I've never had a problem with that. But anyway, so we're going to proceed to mist all the animals that need it. And there are several of them that do. Not every animal in the reptile / invertebrate / amphibian and fish and opossum room needs misting, but a lot of them do. And we actually have them marked, so that way it's easy to just kind of go through and mist the ones that need it. And of course, our staff are trained on the protocols of misting just fine. So not really usually a problem at all. So once everybody's misted and checked over, we're going to make sure that everybody has water for the night. So a lot of the animals do have water bowls, unlike the chameleons and crested geckos that don't really need water bowls. They just drink off the leaves and in their habitat, off the glass and things like that. For a crested gecko, for the chameleons, they drink off the leaves and just kind of soak up the water too. So they don't really need a water bowl either. But the animals that do have water bowls, like our snakes and some of our tarantulas and some of our other lizards, etc., they do need to be checked to make sure that there's water, right? Because we all need water to live, whether it's from rain or whether it's from a water bowl or dish, right? So we always check that they have water. Are you about to jump on me? Just giving me that look. It's a stare down. She will obviously win the blinking contest or staring contest because I will blink and she can't. They cannot blink their eyes, like we said already. I guess I lose. But then we'll check their waters. Like I said, oh, you're going to climb onto my shirt. It's a flower. And then what else do we do? Well, we're going to take care of our opossums for the night. If the opossums have made a mess, we will scoop their litter box. We will clean up a mess if they've made a huge mess. But typically they do not during the day because opossums are another typically nocturnal or primarily nocturnal animal. Opossums are funny though because they tend to adjust pretty well to human schedules. So if you're awake and you need them to be awake too and you're needing to feed them like midday or something like that as a keeper, they will actually adjust just fine and come out and eat at that point. But in nature, they're going to be a instinctively nocturnal animal. So our opossums in particular, they're typically sleeping all day, so they don't really make a mess until overnight, and that's going to be in the morning. That's the biggest mess to clean up. But if they have made a mess for any reason, use the restroom in their litter box, or anything, spilled their water, we'll go ahead and, of course, clean up any messes, and then we'll change their water out each and every time. And then the opossums actually get their food in the PM. Like I mentioned, they're nocturnal, so we've chosen to kind of feed them in the PM for their primary food. The opossums, though, they do get treats during the day if they happen to work and do a program or for training them to do something new. Of course, they're going to get rewards for that. Typically, it's going to be some of their favorites like dog kibble or meat or sometimes banana. They really like banana. And then sometimes, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but sometimes I do go ahead and give them a fruit breakfast in the morning if they happen to already be awake and they're kind of looking for a snack while we're cleaning them. I might go ahead and give them a snack at that time too. But it just kind of all depends, and we use our judgment with that. But their primary, sorry about that, their primary dinner is going to be in the nighttime, hence the word dinner, their primary meal, I should have said. They're going to be fed at night. So what do we feed our opossums for their staple diet? Well, I've probably mentioned this before in some of our opossum presentations that I've done on the live stream. Our opossums are doing fantastic, by the way. They're some of the most beautiful opossums I've ever seen. I'm so very proud of them. And they're doing great with their training and presentation. In fact, Alice actually came on to the news today on, well, it was a live news broadcast over at SA Live, which is a show on KSAT 12 here in San Antonio, Texas. I was able to be on the news today with Alice the opossum. We had Samuel the Jackson's chameleon. We had Sunny the cockatiel. We had Xena the flat rock scorpion. I'm distracted by our next animal. We had Xena the flat rock scorpion, and we had Ghost the axolotl on our news segment today, and they all did very well. Alice did fantastic. And she's doing super well, and she's so beautiful. Anyway, so we'll have her back on the show soon. But our opossum's main diet is going to be the following. So they get actually a nice high-grade canned dog food. They get yogurt, which is not particularly sweetened or flavored. It's just plain Greek yogurt with nothing else in it, but they love it. They also get usually a meat item of some sort that I'll add to it sometimes. And then they'll also get usually banana and dog kibble. That's dry dog kibble. It's a different brand than the other dog foods. They get a good variety. And they also get some sort of vegetable, typically broccoli or collard green, something very, very healthy. And we blend it all up. Well, I don't blend it. I'm not that. I'm a little lazier than that. But I mash it all up. I kind of pseudo blend it, mash it all up. And whoever's taking care of them will do this too. And we'll mix it all up really, really well, like a big, soft kind of pudding. And man, they just eat it all up. They sure do love it. And they get all the ingredients together without being able to nitpick about what they eat. And it's nice and soft, so they just eat it basically everything all in one bite together. That way, I hope that makes sense. It's almost like a pudding of everything together. That way they don't have the ability to say, ooh, I don't want the vegetables, so I'm going to shove those aside and not eat my vegetables. I'm just going to eat the dog food today. They definitely would do that if I didn't mix it well together. I've seen opossums do that before. So they're kind of picky that way in human care. Out in nature, opossums are not like that. They will actually eat whatever they can find because they may not find a meal tomorrow. So they're going to not be picky at all. But in human care, they can be picky because they do know that typically they're going to get a meal every single day. So they can actually be a lot more picky. So our opossums' favorites are things like the dog food, the meat items, and the yogurt. I think they really like too, and the banana and any other fruit Chew. Oh, I see a question. Hello, I always want to call you Joffrey because of the spelling of your name. It's Jeffrey. Hey, Jeffrey. Nice to see you again. You're one of our regulars, so good to see you. Oh, the geckos in Thailand sounded crazy. They scream, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. The word gecko actually comes from the sound gecko, 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 gecko. So maybe it was similar to what you heard. I wonder if it was the same type of gecko, like the OG gecko. I forget what species that is. Somebody tell me in the comments. All you herpetologists out there, you tell me, or you zoologists or you zookeepers that take care of geckos. Tell me which gecko was the original one that was named gecko for their gecko sound, because that looks like this, doesn't it? Those of you that are on Facebook and YouTube, you can see our comment. The geckos in Thailand sounded crazy. They scream, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Was it really screaming? Like really loud? That's so cool. The geckos eat that? Yeah, so you heard me and saw me talking about the nectar that they eat and the bugs and everything else. So these guys, they really like their bugs, but they'll also eat things like nectar and fruit. And the softer and kind of more fermented, the better. I wonder why. And then they fall off a tree branch. Just kidding. No, but they'll eat things like nectar, very soft fruits like mango and things like that. It has to be nice and soft for them to eat it. It can't be like, biting out of an apple or something like that. That would be super silly. Oh, so tokes make a toke sound too. I don't know if they made this sound for you, Jeffrey, but it was like toke. But I'm sure they can say different things. I have definitely seen toke geckos as well. Not in the wild, but I've seen geckos in India that did similar things too. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, super neat. But anyway, so after we feed the opossums, we make their diet, of course, and we feed them. And check their water, make sure they have water. Like I said, we'll always change it to make sure they have fresh and cool water for the night, because that's when they're going to be the most active. So that's really what's important for them, is to have water in the nighttime, right? And care in general in the nighttime, so they can enjoy themselves. They always get enrichment and everything like that. For their enrichment, we tend to change it out periodically, kind of whenever we feel like doing that. They don't really have an enrichment schedule yet, because opossums don't play with their enrichment as much as like the ferrets and the birds and things like that. So we don't change it out as often, but it's at least twice a week or something like that. And they get new toys and new things to do. And the opossums sometimes get trained and things like that. The other night, I did their first voluntary nail trim. So Cooper has actually had a nail trim before when he was knocked out for his neuter. So that wasn't really voluntary, was it? He was actually under anesthesia, and they went ahead and did all of his nails for me while he was asleep, which was, of course, very appreciated when he got his neuter over at the vet. But also, I wanted to see how they would do with a voluntary nail trim, and they did fantastic. I am so proud of our cute little opossums. What we did is what I did, I should say, me and the opossums together, I actually just had them come out of their enclosure voluntarily onto like a tub or a bin with a lid on it. And I put their food on top of that, and they just came out and ate their food out of the bowl. And I was able to just do their nails without them really caring that much. So that was great to see, and nice that we know that we can take care of them that way, because they do need nail trims. They get long, sharp claws, or nails, I should say, that will cut straight through my skin. And it's also better for them because they're not snagging their nails on everything. So that was really cool to see. And again, they're pretty new, so we're always kind of figuring them out all the time, but they do get training sessions of holding and nail trims or whatever they're needing. Bye, Rue. She decided she was all done with this segment. You see that mighty leap? These guys can jump pretty well. Not as well as some other animals, but they can attempt, at least. One really annoying thing about Crested Geckos is their ability to lose their tail and their inability to grow the tail back. That's a bummer. So these guys have tail autotomy, and they actually lose their tail right at the base. They don't have little segments of options like other lizards can. Most other lizards that have tail autotomy, which is the ability to pop their tail off easier than other body parts, it's designed to do that, so it comes off in dangerous times when a predator grabs them, or when they get caught on something and it needs to come off. These guys have tail autotomy, but not in segments like most lizards. Most lizards can lose their tail in many different segments, like where their spine is. These guys, not so much. They can lose their tail in one place, which is right at the base, and once they lose their tail, it does not grow back. So then they have officially what is known as a frog butt after that. And they might be a frog butt forever, well, until their whole life, the rest of their life. and they will not regrow the tail, which is pretty lame if you ask me. Why? Why do you got to be like that? That is a silly adaptation, but that's just the way it is in crested geckos. Most other lizards can, of course, regrow or regenerate the tail after tail autotomy has taken place and the tail comes off, because they need to be able to do it again if the time occurs when they need to do that again. But not for crested geckos. They get that option one time, and then they better just be good leapers and jumpers and get away from enemies in general after that. So that's kind of lame about crested geckos. But as you can see, Rue still has her tail. A lot of crested geckos in The Cure of Humans lose their tails for one reason or another. Maybe they were just really nervous that day. You want to jump to my other hand? That would be super cool. They're just really nervous that day or something. It got caught on something. They, maybe an owner grabbed them, etc., 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 etc. I made up my new word today. Etc. Guys, it's been a long week in general. Yeah. So it happens in captivity. That's what I was trying to say in human care. It can happen. Don't feel bad. If your crested gecko at home loses its tail, it's super common. You can basically just cough on them or look at them wrong, and the tail goes boop, and comes right off. Boop. It may not make a noise, but it'll pop right off. And then they have no more tail. Oh well. And then you officially have a frog butt. It doesn't make them any less cool or cute. In fact, some people like that look. But Rue has her tail. She's a good girl and hasn't lost her tail. You better not. I like the tail. All right. Well, Rue is clearly ready to rumble and get down. That is basically the conclusion of our reptile room for the PM. Just going to climb up on my shirt. So basically we come in, turn lamps off, mist, check over everybody, check waters, take care of our opossums by feeding them and whatever else they need for the night, cleaning maybe, water changes for sure every single night, and maybe some training or whatever they're needing, enrichment switch. That's hard to say. Enrichment switch, etc. So then we take care of that, and that is done. So we move on to our next section, right? So the next section, I'm trying to think what I usually do next. Ferrets. So the ferrets will be done next. Ferrets are pretty simple in the PM. Our ferrets are Thor and Loki. We have one that is, well, speaking of Loki, the grand finale of the Loki season 1 show is tonight, and I can't wait to go see it after this. Have you guys watched it yet? Don't tell me anything. No spoilers. Loki is my favorite character in all of Marvel, and Thor is probably my second favorite character in all of Marvel. And if I had to pick a next one, Captain America. I'm a big Cap fan. But anyway, so, and there's so many more that we love, because we have a lot of Marvel themed animal name and comic books in general, right? If you guys pay attention to our animal names, we're actually pretty creative about that, if I do say so myself. So we have Thor and Loki, our ferrets, and they, every single PM, just like the AM, if you remember, they get let out of their primary enclosure into their playpen, where they can have a whole lot of fun with their enrichment. And for them, we do change out their enrichment pretty frequently, at least 3 or more times a week. And we actually clean it as it gets dirty, because ferrets can be quite messy sometimes using the restroom where they shouldn't, etc. So if things get messy, we'll go ahead and replace them again. So it's at least 3, if not more, times a week. It's a lot. And blankets and everything else get changed out as well, because ferrets are pretty high maintenance and pretty messy, in case you're ever wanting one. Think long and hard before having a pet ferret in your life. They are wonderful animals and a lot of fun, and you will never stop laughing as long as you are watching them. They're so cool, but they're high maintenance. They're not for everybody, and they also have some health problems, usually in The Cure of Humans. Ours are actually raised holistically, so they were neutered later than most ferrets are. They're both boys, so neutered or spayed. They were done so later in life than most ferrets are in the United States anyway. And this is, I'm speaking for the United States in my past experience, not for countries all over the world, right? Because everybody does things different with their ferrets, etc., or other animals too, now that I think about it. But our ferrets are raised more like the European version. So they're neutered later. They were neutered later. They're already neutered. They're about 9 to 10 months old when that happened, as opposed to like weeks old, like most ferrets are in the United States. Not great. Also, our ferrets have the proper diet that they should have, which is raw meat. Ferrets are actually obligate carnivores. That means they should never have plants or carbohydrates or anything like that in their diet. A natural ferret in the wild, which is known as the European polecat. And then there's also the black-footed ferret, which is in the United States. It's actually an endangered species here in the US in the Great Plains. Pretty awesome. One of the neatest animals we have in the US, in my opinion. But the actual animal that the domestic ferret comes from is called the European polecat. And those guys are from, of course, Europe, right? And they are obligate carnivores. And ferrets of both types are actually, and third, I guess, if you count the domestic ferret too. So all three species of ferrets are in the weasel family. And weasels are obligate carnivores too. Some weasel type animals like otters can digest vegetation a little bit easier than the rest of them. But ferrets in general should be fed raw meat, and that is what we feed them. A lot of people, though, in the United States, though, feed them kibble, which it's not usually the owner's fault. So I'm not blaming anybody. Typically, ferrets are fed kibble from a young age when you purchase them from a pet store or you rescue one or somebody gives you one or whatever. Typically in the US, they're raised on kibble, and it's really, really hard to actually get them to convert over to raw meat, which is what they should be eating. But our ferrets, luckily, were raised on raw meat from the beginning and weren't neutered early, like I said. So they're a lot healthier than most ferrets, and they have a lot more energy and rambunctiousness and etc. and wildness to their personality. So they do require a lot of exercise and a lot of things to do, etc. All ferrets really do, but especially these wild men that we have. And so they do get let out at least twice a day, and we try to give them a few hours at least a day for like straight play, interaction with their enrichment, interaction with each other. We do have 2 ferrets, like I said before, and 2 is better than 1 in the care of humans, so they have that company because they are more social as a domestic species than they are in the wild as a polecat species. But long story short, we do offer them playtime for the PM, of course, like I said. So we'll put them in their playpen and kind of maybe go do something else. Maybe we'll do that first and then go do the reptile room and then come back and clean the ferret cage. So in the nighttime, it's not as bad as the daytime. It's kind of like the opossum, so it doesn't take as long. If the litter box is gross, we will clean that up. And we always change their water. We always disinfect because they are fed a raw meat diet and they get fed twice a day. So they've already been fed their breakfast, right? Like you remember last time. So there's going to be raw meat remnants in their enclosure. So we have to make sure that that is disinfected. So it is cleaned, disinfected. If litter box is gross, we'll do that, like I said, and water's changed. And then, of course, we feed them their PM diet. So in the AM, I mentioned last week that they, of course, get a raw meat diet, but it's a balanced raw meat diet. So that means they have to have a variety of different things, and it cannot just be whatever you want. It has to be exactly the type of food that they need. And it can be a variety of animal types. That's actually much better. But in the morning, they get what we call bone in, which means bone included in their meat. That means they have to eat bones. So it has to be non-cooked bones, of course, because cooked bones are very dangerous to feed your animal. They can splinter and cause choking and all sorts of injuries. So that's not good, but it's raw, right? So raw bone is completely normal and natural for carnivores to eat. In the wild, they would be eating rabbits and birds and rodents and reptiles and fish and all sorts of things, and bone included. And they eat the face, they eat the tail, they eat the organs, everything else. So in the morning, that's when they get most of the bone portion of their meat. So usually it's going to be like chicken wings, chicken necks, maybe even mice and rats, things like that that have the bone included. And then the PM, it's a different story. Sometimes they get the bone in diet in the PM, like once a week, I think it is. And we have a chart for this, so we don't forget. But most of the time, that's the gross time to feed them, or the gross feeding, I should say. It's going to be organs like hearts, liver, pancreas, sometimes tongue, sometimes gizzards, all sorts of fun things. But it's typically heart, liver, and organs like pancreas. So, and it can be other things too. We can also give them whole prey for the PM, such as mice, like the whole mouse with the guts in it and everything. Yum. And that is what they get for the PM. So tonight is Wednesday, right? Once in a Wild Wednesday. Welcome if you're just joining us. And we're talking about feeding raw meat to ferret, the Atkins diet. Yep. Ferrets are lean and mean and in great shape, and they do function on the Atkins diet. That's hilarious. Yeah, no carbs and no veggies for ferrets. I don't recommend that for everybody. I think you should talk to a nutritionist or your doctor before you change your diet. I'm not a nutritionist for humans, but I know a lot about animal diet. But yes, it's very similar to the Atkins diet. Richard, hello, Richard. Nice to see you. I'm so glad you're here tonight. But like I was saying, if you're just joining us, we're talking about what we feed our ferrets. I'm not just talking about organs for the heck of it, right? It's not that kind of show. But some animals are carnivores and they have to eat meat, right? So if you don't want carnivorous critters in your life, don't have them. Don't have a cat either, because cats are obligate carnivores too. All right, so that's what we feed them in the PM. So since it's Wednesday, heart is what they get on Wednesdays, and it's typically chicken hearts. It can be other animals' hearts too, but chicken hearts are the easiest and least expensive. Most of the items that I feed our ferrets are going to be found at your local grocery store, but you have to be able to know where to look. We do have good grocery stores here in San Antonio, Texas, that have organs for us, so we can just go buy them over there. Heart, pancreas, which is known as sweetbreads, right? Livers, chicken livers, whatever we need. Sometimes beef livers, whatever. The more variety, the better. So we're going to prep their meal for the PM, put their meal in their enclosure, and whenever they're done with playtime, we put them back in their enclosure to eat, and they take their time to eat, and then they typically take a nap after that. And if they want another playtime, I can offer them another playtime again. But that's the ferrets in a nutshell, right? So then I actually brought another animal that belongs in the herp room for our next segment. But after we're done with the ferrets, I typically move on to the outdoor animals. Oh, happy Shark Week. I didn't know it was Shark Week. This is how much free time I have anymore, or how much I pay attention to the outside world. I should know this, but happy Shark Week to you as well, Richard. And sharks, of course, are also obligate carnivores. You are right. Sharks are very misunderstood. I haven't really ever been a big Shark Week fan, just because I know a lot of it is kind of like shock value stuff. But I do like some of the programs that they show on Shark Week. They're pretty neat, and you can see all sorts of shark documentaries and things, which is kind of cool. So if you guys love sharks, let me know what your favorite species of shark is. My favorite species of shark is the whale shark. I think they're the most beautiful, and I have seen them in person, not in the wild, but actually at the Georgia Aquarium, which of course is in Atlanta, Georgia, one of the biggest and most impressive aquariums in the entire world. And seeing the whale sharks in person was enough to bring a tear to the eye. It was amazing. I highly recommend the Georgia Aquarium. I'm going to turn up our brightness so you can see our next beautiful critter. This is Tiptoes, the pink-toe tarantula, my favorite tarantula in all of our collection of tarantulas. We do have 10 tarantulas here at Once in a Wild, and not all of them are holdable, so I don't bring them on the show a whole lot. But as you can see, Tiptoes is perfectly safe to hold, and she is just wonderful and beautiful, if I do say so myself. And she is a pink-toe tarantula. Specifically, she's an Antilles pink-toe tarantula, which exists in the Antilles Islands in the Caribbean. So right there, another island animal. I didn't even do that on purpose. It's going to be a Caribbean island, of course, instead of New Caledonia, like the Crested Gecko. New Caledonia is in Australasia, which is right adjacent and near to Australia, right? This guy, or lady here, excuse me, ma'am, she would be a species from the Antilles Islands in the Caribbean, my favorite area of the world ever. So like in the all the beautiful island paradise areas of the Caribbean. I just want to go back. Take me back. We have a trip planned for Cancun in June, next June. So exciting. But anyway, so these guys are from that area of the world. They're tropical. They're an animal that doesn't have to deal with seasonal change. Lucky them. They just live in paradise all the time. So they're an animal that also lives in the trees, another tree dwelling or arboreal animal. Arboreal means tree living or tree dwelling or tree climbing. The Crested Gecko was an arboreal animal too. The pink-toe tarantula is very good at climbing and also an arboreal critter. As you can see, she's very good at sticking straight to my hand and being upside down or whatever we need. She has little gripping claws on her toes. So instead of having sticky toes like the Crested Gecko, she's got little claws that are retractable claws, just like a cat's claws. And she has 2 claws on each of her little toes. And she does have 10 toes. 10 toes. Did you know that? So spiders of all types, arachnids in general, including scorpions and ticks and other animals, they have 10 limbs. Did you know that? They have 8 legs and 2 arms. So if you count, there are 10 total. So she's got 2 that are shorter than the rest. She's got 8 walking legs. Traditionally, spiders have 8 legs, right? You knew that. And then 2 arms, which are called pedipalps. And the pedipalps are shorter and they're more like an arm, like appendage. And instead of antenna, like a insect would have, right? So insects have antenna and 6 legs. Arachnids have 8 legs and 2 arm-like appendages, which are called pedipalps, which is actually an extension of their mouth to get even more complicated. But spiders are wonderful animals. A lot of people are afraid of spiders. I wish they weren't, because spiders are very important to the ecosystem. and helping keep the planet nice and healthy. I'm ready for a healthier planet. Are you? If we leave spiders alone, they're going to take care of so many pest animals like roaches, my least favorite animals. Ugh. Not Madagascar roaches, but like other roaches. That's my least favorite animal on the planet. Ugh. And also animals like flies and ticks and mosquitoes that can make us ill as mammals. So we need spiders in our life to take care of some of those critters and help keep the planet healthy. And spiders are wonderful animals. Most spiders are perfectly harmless to humans, and they do have venom. Some spiders are non-venomous. All tarantulas are venomous. She's a tarantula, right? Just a big hairy spider. That's what tarantulas are. All tarantulas have venom, but their venom is mild. Some tarantulas have venom that might harm you and give you a bad day, but there are no deadly tarantulas to humans. Did you know that? They are not able to kill a human. That is just not possible. So her venom is so very mild that they rarely even bite for defense. The reason that she jumped away, by the way, is because I was very forceful with my breath when I was talking just now. And these guys are really, really sensitive to touch. So they have hair all over their body that allows them to feel the slightest little breeze and the slightest movement, even of a moth's wings or a butterfly's wings, because that is sometimes their prey, right? They eat flies and roaches and all sorts of flying bugs and things and moths and whatnot, butterflies. And that is how they hunt. They're going to sense the movement of a bug, and they can tell the difference between a bug and me, thank goodness, because she's not trying to eat me. I'm too big. And my breath lets her know that, well, maybe I need to brush my teeth, but also it lets her know that I'm around, but she's not necessarily being aggressive. She just moved away, which is a more passive maneuver. As you can see, she's not really inclined to bite at all. Not all tarantulas are as uninclined, I should say, to bite. Some tarantulas do bite for defense because they have stronger venom and they know it. This type of tarantula does not have strong venom for a big mammal like me, but she does use her venom to liquefy her food. So remember, these guys are carnivores and they eat bugs. So they're going to eat things like roaches, for example, but they can't chew them. They have to be able to liquefy the roach and drink them like a smoothie. So that's what their venom does. Their venom will actually penetrate with fangs into the bug, and then that will cause the bug to liquefy on the inside. And they have a mouth which is similar to a fly's mouth. It's called a proboscis. And the proboscis mouth is like a straw. They can essentially just drink the food after it is turned into a drink for them. And then they can proceed to get the nutrients that they need. And these guys don't eat very often, but when they do eat, they're going to eat those pesky bugs for us. So that's what makes spiders in general, but even tarantulas, very important. And she's perfectly harmless to a human. I know for a fact that tarantulas are not for everyone. That is okay. But I'm just going to ask that you guys respect her and her counterparts in the wild. So if you see a tarantula, especially a tarantula in the wild, just know that they're harmless to humans and they can't hurt you, or they can't do that much damage, I should say. Some of their bites, depending on where you live, tarantulas do have a stronger venom. Some of them have more venom than others, or more stronger venom, I should say. And it could feel bad, like a wasp sting or something like that. But most of them will not bite you. They have other means of defense that they would rather use most of the time. Sorry about that. Including throwing their hairs. Some tarantulas can throw their hairs, which irritate the eyes of their predators. And some tarantulas will just run away and try to hide. This is a tarantula that would much rather run and hide away in a hollow tree or up in the trees in general and the leaves and just hide away. They can make web homes as well, which kind of resemble hammocks. How appropriate for them to be living in paradise, hanging out in a hammock all the time. They can lay in a hammock, which they have made with their own webbing. Their web kind of looks more like Halloween web than lined web, by the way. But they can also go into a hollow tree and kind of make walls out of their web, and that will give them even more protection just in general to live in. That's what they're going to want to do most of the time, is just hide away in their home, not harming anybody and minding their own business and eating bugs for us. But if they want to get away from something scary, they can run away, skitter away, jump away sometimes for a species like this. And if they feel really threatened, then they can throw their hair sometimes. And if after all that doesn't work, maybe they'll bite at the end, but it's typically going to take a lot for them to bite for this species in particular. Pretty cool. Now, let's move on down our routine of PM care of our animals, right? We have already talked about our herp room, which includes the spiders. And we've also talked about our ferrets. And the next step that I usually take is going to be the outside animals, which include our ducks. And when it's 60 degrees and up, that includes Joanna the iguana and Frank and Shelton the tortoises. Those guys live outside as long as it's 60 degrees and up. And that's most of the year here in South Texas. So they're outside right now, this time of year, of course. rain or shine. These guys that I just listed, the iguana, tortoises, and ducks, they do just fine if it rains. They all have somewhere to kind of shelter away if they want to get out of the rain, but the ducks almost never care about that. Ducks are actually waterproof, which is fantastic, and ducks are weatherproof, which is part of the reason why I chose ducks as a species to keep here, because they can literally hang out in almost any weather whatsoever, especially in Texas. We don't typically have very strong winters or cold winters, but the strongest winters that we get are typically just fine for most duck species and breeds. So we have Pekin ducks and wood ducks. Those guys are outside year-round, like I mentioned. And then we have Joanna the iguana, Frank and Shelton, the red-footed tortoise, is out there as long as it's 60 degrees and up. If it's below 60 degrees, they come inside and they get to live indoors. The tortoises actually live in a kiddie pool situation with hay and lots of warm lamps and things like that. They'll get their lamps turned on and off in the herp room, just like everybody else during the wintertime, or when it's cooler than 60 degrees, fall and winter, I guess. And Joanna the iguana comes into her indoor enclosure, and she has the same situation with lamps and everything like that. So that's how we accommodate the winter time. But most of the year they're outside. So those are the animals that we take care of outdoors in this section that I'm about to talk about. All right. So we go outside, turn the hose on, because that's important, because we hose everything that makes a mess out there, including the ducks and everybody. We will dump their kiddie pool that we filled for them for the day. Ducks, for the most part, are diurnal. That means they're going to sleep in the nighttime. So they don't need a pool to swim in. They do need water to drink, and we have drinking water for them. The wood ducks actually do get a pool all the time, but it's a smaller pool than a kiddie pool. It's like a little, trying to think of the dimensions of their pool, but it's much smaller than a kiddie pool. It's like half the size, if not smaller. And they'll get their pool dumped and refilled, cleaned, of course, if it's gross. And for the Pekin ducks, we just give them like drinking water overnight. And they get their bed made for them at night as well, which is basically another empty kiddie pool with pads in it that are like felt pads, like green. They're almost like mats, like soft green mats for them to lay down in overnight, so they don't have to sit on the hard ground all night, and they can lay down and take a nice sleep and cuddle together. It's super cute. And then the wood ducks also get a green mat to sleep on if they want to as well. But wood ducks typically will perch in trees. That's why they get the name wood duck, or they have the name wood duck. They perch in trees in the woods. And they also nest in the trees too. Wood ducks nest in hollow tree cavities when their nesting time happens, the springtime and all that, and they will nest inside of a tree. So that's partially why they get the name the wood duck as well. They're Carolina wood ducks, if you were curious. And we have 3 of those and 2 Pekin ducks. So Pekin ducks cannot perch on perches, so it's especially important for them to bed down on something soft for the night. So we get them a nice bed to lay on overnight, nice and dry and everything else. Dump their pool, like I said, and then we're going to hose everything that's dirty. And you know what that means with birds. It's going to be their feces, yum, feces and urates. So urates are just the bird term for their urine, which is typically like solid urine, urates, right? Oh, Tiptoes, sorry, I spooked you again. They're so sensitive to the slightest breeze, even my breath. Maybe I need to brush my teeth, like I said before. But these guys, the ducks, they do make a big mess all day long, but luckily we have them on river rocks. So it's really easy to just hose their mess. And since the river rocks provides like a natural drainage, all the mess just goes in between the river rocks and we just hose it all out of the way. And there's mud and everything else for them. Ducks are really, really inclined to play in mud, and it's important for them to get some minerals and things like that from the mud and the dirt. So we just kind of let that happen a little bit, not to a large extent. It's not nasty in there or anything like that. But we do have some mud for them. And of course the kiddie pool during the day, which we dump at night. And then we hose all out. We make sure that all the perching, I guess the P words are what gets Tiptoes. The perching is nice and clean from maybe if Joanna used the restroom, or if the wood ducks use the restroom because they're perching up on the perches. We just make sure everything's nice and clean. Birds can be very messy, in case you were wondering. And then if the tortoises want to come out and graze at that time while we're cleaning, we will take them out into the grass and have them graze on grass and weeds. We do not treat our lawn with chemicals, so it is safe for them to actually eat the grass and eat the weeds out there in the lawn. I don't recommend that if you guys have tortoises or animals that eat greens, to put them in the lawn at your home in case, unless you know it is very, very safe and there's no chemicals on your grass. Please be very careful with that. I don't recommend using chemicals on your grass because wildlife is also out there getting poisoned if you do that. So I don't recommend that either. But I understand a lot of people do choose to use insecticides and things like that. Just make very, very sure that your grass is nice and clean and doesn't have any poison on it before you let your animals eat it, right? So we don't have that. So we let our tortoises graze. And at the same time that I'm hosing out the duck pen, the Pekin ducks get to come out and enjoy the yard as well and run around as much as they want and be silly and play in the mud or whatever they want. Because Pekin ducks cannot fly, it is really easy to let them out into the yard as long as we're supervising them and making sure they're safe, and we have a fenced-in yard, so they're just fine. And then when we're done hosing, refilling their drinking water and making sure everybody's taken care of for the night, typically we don't feed the iguana at night because she's ready to go to sleep. Iguanas are strictly diurnal. Tortoises are too. So if they feel like coming out to graze, they will. But if they don't feel like it and they just want to go to bed, we'll just leave them alone and let them go to sleep. Both of those animals go to sleep pretty quickly as soon as it starts getting a little bit dark. And then all those animals are diurnal as well, so they'll go to sleep in the night. And once we're done cleaning, we'll put the pekins and the tortoises maybe back in the big pen and shut them all up for the night. That sounded mean. We put them all away for the night, put them to bed, and they get to go to bed. And that is that. It's not too bad in the PM. There's not really much feeding involved. Sometimes I'll bring them treats to be able to move the ducks around a little bit more easily because they are food motivated. So if I need to move them from A to B, I can just offer them some treats like dried worms or something like that, or a little bit of their feed. They eat vegetables too, but vegetables aren't their favorite, like a lot of us, right? So we do bring their favorite foods for training. That's a good rule of thumb for any animal training, is if you're asking your animals to do something for a food item, you want to make sure that it's a fun food item or a favorite food item, right? Otherwise, they may not do the thing you're asking, and that's your fault, not theirs. But we do usually bring treats for that if we have to move the ducks from here to there. But to tell you the truth, ooh, did you see that? That's another really cool thing that arboreal tarantulas do, is they will projectile poop. I don't know if you guys actually saw that. It's very, very small amount of poop. Last week, we saw Iggy the guinea pig peeing all over me. He's not an arboreal animal by any means. Guinea pigs are strictly on the ground or terrestrial, but these tarantulas, sometimes like a bird, will just kind of poop, projectile poop. Remember the P words, she didn't like that. But that was caught on camera, which is pretty neat. That I guess can be a defense mechanism as well, but it's not really a defense mechanism. She's just using the bathroom. But that was kind of cool if you're a nerd like me and you like animal pooping. Congratulations. You're one of us now. See the breath? So when I laugh or say like words, she reacts to it. They're very sensitive. I'm not trying to scare her. Just talking and doing my thing. But anyway, where was I? I forgot. I'm distracted by crazy Tiptoes. Tiptoes, wave for the people. But yeah, so animal training, we want to make sure and use your animal's favorite, whatever it may be. It doesn't always have to be food, but if it is food, it better be something that they favor or really like, right? In order to have success. If animals prefer, like a dog maybe prefers to get pets or praise, you can use that as their rewards as well. Well, I think Tiptoes is ready to tiptoe back down into her travel enclosure. Say goodbye to everybody on Facebook and YouTube. Tiptoes, you're absolutely gorgeous. She's actually my favorite of all of our spiders for sure. I just have always loved this species. I think they're just gorgeous. And I love that they're super easy to hold because they hang on to you. And they're a lot less inclined to be hurt when you're holding them too. It's just something I really like because they can climb and kind of skitter around, and they're not as fragile as some of the ground dwelling or terrestrial big body tarantulas. Those bigger tarantulas that live on the ground, they can often like fall even just from a few inches high and really get hurt. So it's a lot easier and more relaxing for me to hold an animal like this. And for those of you on Instagram, can you see her? I'm going to show everybody real close on Instagram. Look at those beautiful iridescent colors. That all comes from her hair. And when she was a baby, she was actually baby blue, kind of like my shirt right here. Right here. And she had pink toes and like zebra or tiger stripes. Really cool. She's still got a little bit of striping on her abdomen, because remember they have two body parts, main body parts, center body part, which is the cephalothorax, which is head and body combined, and then abdomen, which is her abdomen or metasoma, which is like her rear end. And that is going to be still striped a little bit where it's like burgundy colored. Do you see that? She's got just a little bit, but as they grow up and molt their exoskeleton, as every tarantula does when they grow, they change color as they grow. So most tarantula babies are spiderlings, or slings for short. They actually look very different as babies. And as they grow, they're going to molt and molt and molt and change into their adult coloration. So this is an adult female pink toe tarantula, and Antilles pink toe tarantula, to be specific. There are different species, but she's one of my absolute favorite animals we have. Look at her crawling down my tattoo. I think that looks really cool. And we're going to have her crawl right back into her travel enclosure. Goodbye, Tiptoes. All of our animals hang out for the show and when they go on programs in general in their travel enclosures to help keep them nice and safe. Do not worry. They don't live in small spaces in general. Behind the scenes, they do have bigger homes. We would absolutely love to have you guys visit our facility someday when we have a facility that guests can come and tour and do like private tours, maybe even events at our facility and things like that. We have a lot of questions and a lot of interest in that sort of thing and doing private tours. We would love to do that someday for you guys, so you can actually see where the animals really live. And maybe sometime I will do a little tour virtually as well. I forgot to refocus. There we go. I will do a virtual tour as well, maybe sometime on my phone for Instagram or something like that. I bet you guys would really like to see that. If you would like to see some of the behind the scenes action, check out our TikTok. Check out our Instagram too while you're at it if you're not already on our Instagram. Facebook too. But TikTok has a lot of random funny videos if you're okay with your kids being on TikTok. Supervised, of course, but you adults out there, you can be on TikTok all you want. We have a lot of really fun videos on TikTok that are behind the scenes. And I would love to do a little bit more of that for our other platforms too, if you would like to see that. You let me know in the comments what you would like to see in the live stream and otherwise on our social media. And if you would like to support us today, our live stream is always free, and we'd love to provide that for free for you guys because we love you guys. And thank you for following us. We really appreciate all of our friends, family, and followers for tuning in each and every week or rewatching the videos, sharing them, liking them, which are all free ways to help us out. But we do have a few not so free ways to help us out because, of course, we have to feed our animals and make sure everybody's taken care of and etc. Pay our staff and pay our bills. So we have a few ways that you can donate actual funds to us. Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal are the three most popular ways. But we also have an Amazon wish list as well over at onceinawild.com. If you scroll down to the near bottom of the homepage, you will see a donate button, which actually gives you the links to all the options I just listed. Also, for your convenience, in this description box down below, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, there is all the links for the donation options too for your convenience. So check it out, and we very much appreciate any donations made to Once in a While because that directly goes straight to our animal care. And I do promise you that every single amount or donated item from Amazon is for the animals, and we can keep doing what we do, which is bringing animals to classrooms, birthday parties, all sorts of events in general for fun, but also for education and advocating for these beautiful animals that we love so much and want to see thriving in the wild and thriving in human care too. So we educate you guys all about them to make sure they're doing well. So we appreciate you guys tuning in today. We have one more animal coming out, and I want to talk about one more animal section that we take care of on a nightly basis. Remember, we're talking about our night and PM routine. Last week we talked, almost said yesterday, our I'm not leaving yet, Jeffrey. I'm not leaving yet. We're not done. But if you're leaving, I'll see you next time. But anyway, so we are ready to talk about our final section of animals, which is the bird and mammal room. That includes our cockatiels, our times 3, our ringneck doves times 4, and our budgie times 1. And also we do have our small mammals in there, as well as one of our largest animals in the collection. It's Sandor, the Flemish giant rabbit. So Sandor the rabbit, the 4 guinea pigs, Iggy, Noodles, Dexter, and Billy Joe, as well as our 2 hedgehogs live in this room, along with the birds I already listed. So it's quite a variety or menagerie in there. And they all live in the same room, but not all in the same enclosures. Kind of like the herp room that I mentioned before, or the reptile room. We've got reptiles of all sorts. We've got amphibians in there, creepy crawlies like arachnids, like Tiptoes lives in the reptile room. And we've even got our opossums and one fish in there. And they all kind of have their own space for the most part. It's kind of the same situation with the bird room, except for during the day, the bird room is free mingle time for our small birds and for our rabbit. The hedgehogs and the guinea pigs have their own space where they get to have lots of space to move around if they want to. Hedgehogs are asleep all day and awake at night. So they actually come out at night when we never see them, and they have a running wheel and lots of space to run around in their own habitat. Hedgehogs are solitary though. So they each have their own separate space from each other, and they don't want anything to do with anybody, including one another. So hedgehogs are very, very solitary and want to be left alone in the dark. That is what they like. But we also have the birds out during the day, and all the birds that I listed mingle together in the room with their enclosures open for them for free access to have flying time, enrichment time, whatever they need, kind of like the ferrets, but longer, all day long. And the rabbits out all the time unless we're cleaning. So we'll go into the bird and mammal room, right? And we will put away the rabbit. That is the first thing that I always do personally, because he will get so excited to see us, which is so sweet, but then he will trip me when I'm walking around. And he's a big rabbit. He's 22 pounds. He's a Flemish giant rabbit. He's literally a giant. So he will trip me and make me fall as I'm doing all of my cleaning and duties in there. So I put him away, and by putting him away, I'm basically just putting him in a big round pen that he has attached to his enclosure, which is usually open, but it's like a fencing, and he'll go in there. When I ask him to, I'm like, get in your house, and he'll just jump in there, and I'll shut the door temporarily. I'll usually give him a little snack for that, maybe like a little piece of something novel like bird food, or even his rabbit pellets or something like that, just for participating. Or I'll give him a little pet for doing what I asked him, because that's always good positive reinforcement, right? He gets something for doing what I asked him to. Anyway, so he's put away. Then I get the birds ready to feed them. This is a feeding frenzy, if I ever did see one or experience one. If you've ever seen, like when you walk into an aviary full of birds, like lorikeets or budgies or cockatiels, man, they are ready to eat and they land all over you. That is exactly what happens in the bird and mammal room here with us. So we will walk in, and all the birds are ready to eat their dinner. They should be ready by the PM. And they'll land all over me or whoever's caring for them. And we'll start putting their bowls in their enclosures, because I don't usually leave their bowls in their enclosures except for water bowls. They always have water all the time. But they will sit on their bowls and use them for a toilet. And so that's kind of pointless to just leave their empty bowls in there. Our birds are not free fed. We feed them in shifts or on schedule. So we feed them in the AM and we feed them in the PM. I mentioned last week that we feed their AM diet, which is vegetables or chopped vegetables, chopped very finely for our little birds. And then the doves actually get seeds and vegetables every morning. But for the PM, they get their dry diets, which are their pellets. And then of course, they get seeds like millet for training periodically during the day if they're working or learning something new, etc. Sunny, the cockatiel, was on the news today, so you better believe he got lots of fun treats for being on the news and participating in that. It was really funny. I highly recommend checking that out, and I will try to make that link available maybe in the description, or if you check out our social media, you can find the link to when we were on the news. I'm sure it'll be on YouTube at least. I highly recommend checking that out because it was pretty funny. Sunny is a hand. So he got to go and get treats today. But if any of the other animals work or we're training them anything, maybe just flying or something like that to us, they'll get treats too. But for their staple diets in the AM, they get their veggies, and then the doves get seed and veggies. And then for the PM, our citizens, which includes parrot species, so our budgie and our cockatiels, they get their healthy pellets. We feed rowdy bush and also, Missouri, which is what the budgie has decided she likes better. But a nice high quality pellet diet of any type is highly recommended by us for your citizen species like parrots for the PM portion of their diet, or their staple diet, to be honest with you. Not an all seed diet. We don't recommend all seed diets for any citizens, so your parrot type birds. So please don't feed them all seed diets. It's not good for them. It's very, very fatty. It can give them lots and lots of issues. I talked about a bird care one time on the live stream. Check out our bird care video that I made a while back. You'll really have a good educated time, a good educated time on that live stream if you check it out. And it won't be live anymore, but it's a playback for you if you happen to have pet birds. I highly recommend checking that out and doing lots of research on bird diet, because that is actually the easiest way, in my opinion, to fix birds' problems. Also, feeding them on a schedule is also really, really helpful too. So anyway, so in the PM, we give them their pellet diet, and it's just a little bit. They're little birds, so they don't need a ton. So we'll give them their portions. I'm not going to tell you exactly how much that is. That will take me forever tonight. And then they actually fly back into their cage and land in there voluntarily. Or we can step them up and place them in their cage sometimes, or their enclosure, I should say. And they're all placed in their own enclosures. The doves do share one enclosure for their feeding time and overnight. The budgie has an enclosure to herself. She's the only budgie we have. Pardon me, you guys. Time for a drink. We're almost done, I promise. And then, talking to myself too. And then the two yellow cockatiels, Sunflower and Dandelion, have a enclosure to themselves because they are very, very close and pretty bonded. They have been raised together since we've had them. And then Evie, our male cockatiel, actually does go into his own enclosure. So for the most part, they all have their own. Doves do share, Sunny and Dandy share, and then Evie and what's her name? R2D2, our budgie, actually have their own enclosures. That's just the way it has worked out. They all go into their own enclosures and they get fed their dry diet portions that they need, that we've measured out for them. If any of those diets need to be adjusted, maybe they're leaving a lot of food lately, we'll actually adjust the amount of diet that we give them. We're always kind of paying attention to that. They don't get their diets left in overnight. So we will give them their food and then proceed to the rest of the room to clean, right? So usually after that, I will proceed to checking on the hedgehogs. Now, last week I mentioned that we clean the hedgehogs in the AM, but remember, hedgehogs are nocturnal, so they're not really going to be doing a whole lot during the day. So I'm literally just checking on them at night. I'm checking their water. I'm probably going to change their water out just in case, make sure they have fresh water for the nighttime. And then we're going to check that they're nice and clean, but they're usually sleeping. So we just kind of look at them and they usually say, leave me alone. I'm still asleep because the lights are still on and they'll hiss at us or whatever. And we just say, never mind, just making sure you're okay. Put the cover back on the blanket and we'll make sure they have food and everything and then shut their lids and they're done. And so they're very easy in the PM. Usually they haven't even moved all day. They've been sleeping. So in the morning is when they're the messiest, just like the opossums and the ferrets. And then, I will proceed to the guinea pigs. Guinea pigs are probably some of the most high maintenance, at least of all the mammals, in my opinion. The ferrets are pretty high maintenance, but cleaning their enclosure and their areas are pretty easy. I forgot to mention with the ferrets that we do clean their playpen after they have been spending time in their playpen as well. That probably goes without saying, but that's another thing I actually skipped tonight. I knew I should have made notes. Oh well. Forgive me. I'm sure you do. The guinea pigs are going to be next, and we will clean up all of their feces. Guinea pig feces is pretty dry. It's like pellets, almost like a rat or a mouse. They are rodents after all. And so usually just kind of sweep them up and throw them away in a trash pail. And any of their hay that they've kind of like thrown around, we'll clean that up too. Make sure all of their fleece, which is their main substrate or bedding, is nice and taut. Almost like making your bed and making sure the sheets are nice and taut so they can walk around. I feel like guinea pigs prefer fleece to sit on or run around on because if they do urinate on it, the urine goes down in between the fleece and the fleece just dries and they don't have to be wet. Guinea pigs, like most animals, really don't like sitting in wetness or standing in wetness. And they're short and low to the ground. So they are a lot more likely to get dirty if they're stepping in mess all day. Not good. So we use fleece blankets on top. That's the top layer. And then on the second to the middle layer, I should say, is going to be towels, like regular absorbent towels. And under that, we use pellet litter, which is like a pine pellet. So it's a compressed pine pellet. It's not pine shaving. Pine shavings can be problematic sometimes for like dusty reasons and irritable reasons, irritating properties. But pellet pine litter is just fine. It's equine pine, or we use the Tractor Supply brand, which is cheaper. It's the same thing. And that's what we use in a few inches or a couple inches, I should say, underneath the towel. So anything that is liquid just goes all the way down. And then periodically we'll scoop the litter when it needs it. But I don't do that on a daily basis, just as needed. Typically, I will just clean up the poops, the pellet poops, and I will scoop up and sweep up any messes in general, kind of rearrange their enrichment items. They get lots of toys and enrichment, things to chew on, things to play with, things to hide under, usually cardboard boxes to chew on, things like that. And we always check their water and make sure they have plenty of water in their water bottle because they use water bottles. And then we top off their hay, of course, and make sure there's not too much mess in their hay because guinea pigs are grazers and they need lots of hay to munch on all day long because they're awake for 20 hours a day, which is why they poop so much. Guinea pigs only sleep for 4 hours a day total in small increments throughout the day. So they're neither nocturnal nor diurnal. They're more crepuscular. But they're not really that either. They're kind of specialized. They only sleep for a total of 4 hours a day in small naps throughout the day, here and there. So you won't really see them or experience them sleeping very much. So they make a lot of mess. Long story short, They eat a lot, they poop a lot, they pee a lot. So they definitely need a cleaning twice a day, which is what we do. So once all those guys are clean and their waters are topped off, they actually get their dry diet, which is a pellet diet. So guinea pigs require vitamin C in their diet. Very important. You can actually give guinea pigs vitamin C that's like for children, like drops, or even like a powder that it's a like a tablet that you can mix into a powder and put over their hay or veggies if you want to. I don't typically give veggies in the PM. I give their pellet in the PM. And I was always recommended by the top guinea pig people that I've always met that have the longest lived guinea pigs ever to feed oxbow pellets for their PM portion. They only get it in the PM, and each guinea pig, we have 4 of them, right? Each guinea pig individually only gets 1/8 of a cup of oxbow pellets per day, which is in the PM, so per night. That's all they get. If you feed them more than that, if you free feed pellets, they will sit there and eat it and get extremely fat. Guinea pigs are like little potatoes, and they can become big fat potatoes in no time if you free feed them pellets. So they should be free fed Timothy hay or orchard hay all day long, every day for grazing purposes, and they can be given grass too for that too, as long as it's not full of chemicals, right? Like we talked about with the tortoises. And they can get vegetables here and there. We usually feed the vegetables in the morning, like I think I mentioned last week. That is an AM thing. And in the PM, we give them their oxbow pellets. But they need that vitamin C some way, one way or another. Very important for guinea pigs' health. So the easiest way for me is to put their pellets over their hay, 1/8 cup per guinea pig per PM shift. And I just sprinkle it over their hay, kind of like in little piles, since we have multiple guinea pigs, and sometimes they don't share well, so they need little separated piles. Excuse me, guys. Remember to stay hydrated out there. Golly. I've been talking too much. It's time to go. So that will be kind of the final step for the guinea pigs, is getting their pellets and making sure they have plenty of that vitamin C that they need. But the vitamin C in the oxbow pellets, which is a very good brand, by the way, for really anything, oxbow is a great item for animal in general. It's a great brand for pets in general. It's kind of like the Rowdy Bush of small mammals. Rowdy Bush pellets for birds. But anyway, these guys need their vitamin C. So that's the easiest way to give them portion that I know is correct. You know what I'm saying? So if I measure out the child's vitamins that are liquid, I always feel like, number one, did they get it all? Are they going to take it from me? Some of them like it and some of them don't. Easiest way is just give them their pellets. They love it. They eat it right up in no time, and they get the vitamin C they need. I've never had a problem giving vitamin C that way. That's what I recommend and what we do here once in a while. And as we talk about our last animal, I'm going to bring out one more animal tonight if you guys would like to see him. He's the animal that's actually in the former section that we just talked about, the outside portion, right? I'm going to make sure he's clean for you because he just came in from the outside and it was muddy and raining out there. So pardon me for just a moment. It's everybody's favorite tortoise, you guys. It's Shelton John. Shelton John, the red-footed tortoise, lives outside during most of the year, right? And during the colder times of year when it's below 60 degrees, he'll live in the reptile room with the other reptiles. But most of the time he's going to be outside with his best friend, Frank Sinatra, the other red-footed tortoise, and Joanna the iguana supervising all of them, and along with the ducks, Goncito, Lucas, Indy, Jazz, and Disco. And that's who lives outside, right? But we covered the outside portion already. And our last and final animal in the bird and mammal room is going to be Sandor, the Flemish giant rabbit, everybody's favorite bunny. And that's the one that I will usually proceed to do last. Because remember, he's been locked away, so he's out of the way and doesn't trip me while I'm taking care of the rest of the animals. He's so selfish and vain. He wants to be first and just treated like a king all the time. He deserves it, but I have other animals to take care of, so I got to put him somewhere. So I'll typically get his pellets ready, which is his favorite food besides bananas and other vegetables. In the PM, he gets a little portion of pellets, which actually are not necessary for adult rabbits. But he likes it so well, we use it for a treat and for this next little step that I'm going to tell you about. We only give him a little bit, about this much, and for a rabbit that size, that is not very much. It is really important to let rabbits graze, just like guinea pigs, on timothy or orchard hay all day long. Rabbits and guinea pigs, for that matter, should be grazing all the time, unless they're asleep. and should be eating every single day and passing stools every single day. Otherwise, they go into what we call stasis. They are grazing animals, so they have to be grazing all the time. It's very important for them to be doing that. If they don't eat in a day and if they don't poop in a day, that is an emergency for those type of grazing type animals. Even horses and cows too. Did you know that? Horses and rabbits cannot throw up. So if they get a digestive problem, that is an emergency. You have to take them extremely quickly to your veterinarian that specializes in those types of animals. You can't just take them to a dog or cat vet. That is very important. You must take your sick rabbit if they are sick with stasis, especially, or something very serious like that. It's very serious. They can get very ill and pass away very quickly. It's important to take them to a vet that's familiar with those types of situations and species. So I highly recommend that. Here in San Antonio, Texas, I do recommend Dr. Woolley over at Family Pet Hospital. And we also recommend Covenant Care Animal Hospital, where there are several exotic animal vets. And I know there's many others here in San Antonio. That's actually who we use here in town, if you were wondering. Unshamed, unbashful plug there. I'm not ashamed to mention that. But anyway, I know there's a better way to say that, but I forgot what it is. Anyway, thought I'd plug my veterinarian. But yeah, so the rabbit gets hay to graze on all day long. Timothy hay. And he also gets, of course, the pellets for the PM, but just a little bit, honestly. It's like super tiny portion. And when they are babies, it's okay to feed them pellets more than that because they are still growing. But once they're adults, and he certainly is done growing, he's 22 pounds, like I mentioned before. He's a big boy. So we don't want him to get obese, right? 22 is as much as he should ever weigh. He's very healthy, but he shouldn't be fatter than that. So feeding him more pellets than that, or like more fruity type items like bananas, or more carrots with lots of sugar in it, by the way, is not great for rabbits. It can actually make them fat in no time and cause them to have all sorts of health problems. So we minimize that, but he really likes them, so we do use them for a treat. So when I'm ready to let him out and clean his section, because remember he's put away, I'll open the gate, he'll run out. I always make sure that he's behaving calmly, though. I don't want to encourage him being crazy to get let out of his pen. We want nice, calm behavior, all 4 feet on the ground, not jumping up, and not biting the side of the fencing like he does sometimes, and not digging at the fencing. I want him to either be laying down or standing calmly, or even just like away from the gate whatsoever. So if he's doing that, I'll let him out. Or I'll wait for him to behave and then I'll let him out. That's part of training. And I'll either ask him to go into his crate, which he does have a hard crate for travel. And it's a good training opportunity. And now it's the time for me to set Shelton down, by the way. So fun fact about tortoises. They have an all veggie diet. They are herbivores, so they have a high fiber diet, don't they? And so sometimes they use the restroom. In fact, tortoises, I dare say, are the messiest of all the reptiles as far as using the potty. So I'm going to have to set Shelton down for the rest of the segment. And we're almost done anyway. But anyway, see, just like last week, you're seeing behind the scenes a little bit and what I have to deal with every single day. And what does a zoo owner do on an everyday basis? Well, we have to deal with feces, don't we? We clean up after the animals like we're talking about. That's part of it. And if you don't like to clean up after animals, then you shouldn't be a zookeeper or have pets, right? So anyway, so after Sandor has come out and gotten his little bit of pellets that we give him for either crating or doing something that we like, and he gets a little treat, then I can proceed to, while he's busy with that, I can proceed to cleaning his area. So usually he will have a few stray poops. He's very good about using his litter box, but he will sometimes have a few stray pellets of poop, which is very benign for a rabbit, not a big deal to clean up. And he will usually kick out some of his hay, right? And then at that time, I will also refill his water because I'm sure he's drank a lot of water during the day. Fun fact, rabbits do drink as much water as a large dog. So it's really important to give them a lot of water and check their water at least twice a day to make sure they have enough. Because they're grazing on hay all day, they tend to be very thirsty. And it's important for them to be hydrated, just like all of us, right? But rabbits do drink a lot. Water, nothing else. They shouldn't be drinking anything else but water. They don't have a drinking problem. But anyway, so I actually give him a big water bowl, which is attached to the side of his pen, as well as a backup water source, which is a big water bottle. It's like a great big giant water bottle that you might give like a Great Dane or something like that for travel. It's huge. So that's a backup water source. I don't necessarily recommend water bottles for rabbits because they don't get a lot of water out of a water bottle. They can't slurp it up as quickly as a water bowl. So a great big water bowl that's nice and sturdy, spill proof, or that sticks to the side of the pen or kennel, etc., that you're keeping your rabbit in. or a ceramic dish that doesn't tip over, or a metal dish that doesn't tip over, is very important for rabbits. And maybe even multiple water sources for your rabbit as well, if you have like a free range rabbit, etc. So we check his water, of course. And then after all that's done, I'll give him a little bit more pellets for going back into his house, because at that time I'm going to vacuum. And that is the final step of the night, is taking out the old shop vac and vacuuming the whole room. And I lied, there's one more step after this, but we vacuum the whole room. Remember, the birds have been out. There's feathers, there's feces, there's urates, there's dust, there's all the things. There's hair from the mammals as well, like the rabbit. And even the guinea pig's hair will fly all over the room too. Maybe even the hedgehog's hair. Everybody. But it's mostly for the birds and for the hay and things like that. So we'll do a nice vacuum of the whole room. Guys. Hold on. I'm not crying, you're crying. No, I just have a dry throat. I'm so emotional talking about my animal. Don't you want to support us here at Once in a While? Just joking. Guys, I've been talking all day long, even on the news, and my throat has just given up. Oh, anyway, we're almost done. We're almost done, Amanda. Hang in there. So we will vacuum, and then I will go around and check the birds' food, because they're probably done by now, and I will empty all their crumbs and take away whatever remains, because at that point they're ready to go to bed. And it's really important for most birds, diurnal birds like parrots especially, to have a nice long time to sleep every single night, and nice darkness to sleep. Just like me, I need about 10 hours of sleep every night to be happy, and I haven't been getting that, so whew, that's why I have no voice. I'm gonna get some sleep tonight. But long story short, birds of that nature, especially diurnal birds, like the doves and the small parrots, they need a long sleep period. So we try to give them about 10 hours of sleep every night. So I try to get done with vacuuming pretty quick, and the birds are typically done eating. I'll remove their bowls, clean them if I need to, dump their crumbs. Sometimes Sandor appreciates a little bit of bird pellet crumbs as a little treat, and sometimes the guinea pigs do too. If there's any remaining, I'll give it to them, because I'm a sucker. And then we'll clean the bowls if we need to, and that is it for that room and for the whole of animal husbandry. So you have walked through the PM shift with me. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about that, and now we really can say goodbye. Bye. I know Jeffrey was saying goodbye in our last little section. Pardon me, my goodness. It's just a dry throat. I just can't tonight. And now we can really say goodbye, because that's actually the last little bit of husbandry that we do. There's always extra stuff to do as well. Periodically, we'll have to do projects like building enclosures, cleaning more enclosures in the reptile room, feeding reptiles, because they don't get fed every day. So some of them get fed and some of them don't on different days, right? We might be doing extra dusting or extra fun things like throwing away a whole bunch of old enrichment or replacing enrichment. All sorts of things. Maybe giving our hedgehogs a bath. Maybe giving Iggy the guinea pig a bath, because he gets really gross with all that long hair, walking all in his mess. And we make sure and give him a bath at least once a week. There you go. Okay, bye for real this time, Jeffrey. Very cute. You're always so funny, making me laugh. And then there's always all sorts of other projects to do on a pretty much daily basis, but that is the gist of our main bulk of husbandry that we do every single PM. And last week, if you want to check out the AM shift, you can check out all of that. It's very similar, but there are, of course, some subtle differences. So in case you were wondering how much work it takes to just take care of all of our 75 plus animal ambassadors, now you know that it's a lot of work, and I'm sure you already knew that and you appreciate us. If you would like to tip, you can do so with Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal, as well as our Amazon wish list, which is found at onceinawild.com. If you'd like to book your own animal encounter of any type, whether virtual or in person here in the South Texas area, please let us know, and we would love to help you out. And without me losing my voice again, we will go ahead and say thank you so very much. Check out our news segment. I will make sure that's on social media for you guys to see. It was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy that. It was kind of funny. And I hope to see you guys next week here at Once in a Wild Wednesday. Bye, guys. We are nothing close to ordinary, but we love to be your friend. Hold our hands and let's have fun together, singing as loud as you can. Everybody singing Once in a Wild. Together. Once in a Wild. I want to hear you say Once Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your support, and we hope to see you next week. Same time, same platforms, here Once in a Wild Wednesday. See you next time. Bye.